Honey, come on in here. There's a guy on YouTube. He's doing a Zoom call with himself for some reason, and he's reading his own tweets. I don't care if you're a Democrat. I don't care if you're a Republican. I don't care if you're somewhere in between or something else entirely or something that hasn't even been invented yet. You're conservative, you're liberal, whatever, or something other, some big tech company or not. If you're not for freedom of speech for people that you personally disagree with, even passionately disagree with them, even if it makes you mad, if you're not for their free speech, you're not really truly for free speech. I see a lot of artists that are like, don't tell me to just sing and shut up about my politics. I have every right to talk about my politics. But then when they see somebody else talking about politics that they disagree with, they go into full attack mode. Some of them. Not everybody, of course, but you've seen it happen as much as I have. Hey, I have a new look. I lost a tooth. So I'm getting used to just saying, yeah, you know what? I'm old. I'm 60 years old. I'm going to lose some teeth every once in a while, and hopefully we'll get something replaced. But at the moment, I look like something from a horror movie, and that's okay. I don't mind horror movies. I don't mind looking like. I used to be very vain. I think I still am vain, but that's because of my hair. It's not because of my hair, but that's evidence in my hair that I'm kind of a vain person about my looks. But I think it's kind of funny that I got humbled by losing a tooth. Particular news sources, but I do pick out some that if they're biased one way or the other, it's obvious to me. And then I try to find something that seems as opposite biased as the other one and try to get stories from everywhere. So right now we're looking at the Epoch Times, and some people are going to say, oh, that's a right-wing crazy, and I don't think they're too crazy. They seem pretty much like any conservative magazine I've ever seen in my life, and why not? I used to look at conservative magazines and liberal magazines. I can look at conservative websites and liberal websites. And I'm more of a liberal. I'm more of a liberal and a libertarian, but all of these words have lost meaning because nobody can really tell you. You can't find three people to agree on what those words mean anymore. So we just kind of have to go, well, this is what I am. This is what I believe. I believe in freedom. I believe that we need to have less rules, less crazy enforcement of rules that seem like we're in a military state. And at the same time, I'm not against rules that help people stay safe. So what does that make me? I don't know. But I think a lot of things should be legalized, whereas it seems like Joe Biden is trying to illegalize even more things. I've told this story before, I believe. I don't know if you've seen it, but when I was a kid, I was very, very interested in politics. The Watergate trial of Richard Nixon really got me into it, but I was interested before because of Bobby Kennedy. And when the Nixon thing was going on, Joe Biden was coming onto the scene, and he was saying things that I remembered Bobby Kennedy said, well, actually, that's true. But he was saying things that sounded like Bobby Kennedy, and I was like, oh, I'm going to watch this guy. And it turned out that he was just ripping off speeches from Bobby Kennedy to make himself look good. He was the youngest guy in Congress at the time, and so a lot of young people, myself, I don't know if other young people that were 10 years old were watching politics at the time, but I said, you know what, this guy is a joke. He's not Bobby Kennedy, but he's pretending to be. And back then, the press, not just because they were used to going after Nixon, but they used to do their jobs, and they would call politicians on their lies and their BS. And Joe Biden got called on his BS for a long time, even up until he was running in '88 as during a campaign. Al Gore was running back then. I believe, it was Michael Dukakis who finally got that nomination, which is probably who George Bush the first wanted to run against, because he was such an he was so easy to beat. Even during the debates back in '88, I was like, Dukakis is going to lose this thing bad. I appreciate that he's a liberal, but he's not going to be beating George Bush. Bush wiped the floor with him back in '88 at the debates. But yeah, if they had gone with Joe Biden in '88, he might have had a chance against George Bush the first, because he good with words. he was at one time, even though he was a snake, and I could tell he was a snake. He's really good with his speech, and just being able to communicate ideas and stuff, and looking presidential, except he lied so much and plagiarized so much that there was just no way that the Democratic Party at that time would put up with it. Now they put up with it. Now it's like, don't you say anything bad about Joe Biden. Anything. Nothing, even if it's true. And it usually is. So things have changed since the '80s on the political front. Elizabeth Warren, I see, is in the news here. I'm not going to click on the article. On this one, I'm just going to click, as I already have, onto the headlines. I have a very squeaky chair. All through my radio career, there was always a squeaky chair. And sometimes if I just do the show on the floor, there's somebody squeaking in another room that the mic picks up. So squeakiness follows me wherever I go. But anyway, I see that Elizabeth Warren is sort of in campaign mode here, and she's actually making a very, very good point that I agree with. I don't really trust her so much, but she's making a good point on this one, that Twitter and Facebook and other social media platforms who censor even governmental figures that she wouldn't agree with, she's finally saying something about it. And if anybody can say something about it and be listened to, it's probably Elizabeth Warren. So right at the moment, this could change, because, you can't agree with everybody on everything. But at the moment, I agree with Elizabeth Warren a lot, that Facebook and Twitter and all sorts of platforms are out of control. And I am not for censoring those platforms, but I am for making it more fair, forcing the platforms to be more fair. Anybody should be able to follow anybody. If the late Charles Manson had a Twitter account, I should be able to follow him if I want to and make fun of him. And I would. I'd follow him and I'd make fun of him. And if he came to get me somehow, even though he's behind closed doors for the rest of his life, if he was still alive, I would have to deal with whatever consequences came my way from people that are fans of his, I suppose. But it doesn't matter to me. I don't think it's the job of Twitter and Facebook, and I hear a lot of people saying this now. I don't think it's their job to censor people. Alex Jones should be on Twitter and Facebook, and even he's apologized so many times for things that he said that were stupid, and he's admitted that he's kind of retarded. He said that to Joe Rogan. I'm kind of retarded, Joe. And I take him at his word, and some people might use that as an excuse, I suppose, but I kind of take it at him as his word there, that I'm kind of retarded, Joe. Said it out loud. Just why would somebody say that if it wasn't true about themselves? He knows he fucks up a lot. He says things that he shouldn't say. But as Rogan said, and people say, "Oh, that Joe Rogan, he's a far right lunatic." No, he's not. He's a left winger. Voted for Bernie Sanders. He was in full support of Tulsi Gabbard, like I am, and that does not make him a right winger. You're crazy if you think Joe Rogan is a right winger. But Alex Jones, if you were listening back in the days of George W. Bush, Alex Jones was not pro George W. Bush at all. And I don't think he's a Republican or a Democrat. I think he's a rabble rouser. And I think he likes to make points in a very bombastic way. And sometimes when you exaggerate, people don't know if you're totally serious. They read you in print and it's not the context that you had in mind. And it's very sad to see anybody banned from any of these platforms, because I should be able to make fun of Alex Jones to his own Twitter account if I want to. I should be able to. I do that with other people. There's Jim Cornette from the wrestling world. I will sometimes poke fun at him, and I think his skin is thick enough. I think his skin is thick enough that he can deal with it, as opposed to some other people in the wrestling world who don't seem to be able to deal with it. But whatever. They don't have to follow me. They don't have to listen to my bullshit. They can just click me off and never hear from me again, and that's fine too. That's the way Twitter should work. You've got the control. Same with Facebook. You've got the control. You can allow people into your timeline who you want to listen to and either agree with or mock or whatever you want to do. They're not galvanizing people to do bad things. If you do bad things because you heard somebody on the radio say something, that's on you, man. That's on you, man. I remember during the Air America radio days, there was a violent act in New York City. I believe it was New York City, and somebody in their letter explaining their actions, or as much as they could from their vantage point, explaining their actions, was blaming something that they heard on Air America radio. So, it's like it'll happen on the right wing and the left wing. Somebody will hear something and they will snap. It's not the person who said the thing that makes you snap. You might as well blame the book Catcher in the Rye, because so many people have tried to assassinate presidents because, well, not because, but coincidentally, they were reading Catcher in the Rye, and they had that on their person when they were arrested, or found dead, one way or the other. And so, do we ban Catcher in the Rye? I suppose some people would want to. That's the way things seem to be going right now. Ban it. We don't want to have to deal with things that inspire people to do bad things. But anyway, Elizabeth Warren is correct. Donald Trump should not have been banned from Facebook or Twitter. As much as you can disagree with him or agree with him, you can love him or hate him. It doesn't seem to be anything in the middle. I'm in the middle on Donald Trump. I feel like he had 4 years to try something. He wasn't given a chance to do anything. People didn't like the way he talked. So, and of course he did say that he was trying to stop some wars. Now, the last president that I remember that tried to stop war was Jimmy Carter. And during his administration, there was a problem every day. There was the Iran-Contra situation. So every night on TV at 11:30, ABC started this show where they were criticizing Jimmy Carter's foreign policy every night And all day long you would hear about these horrible things going on in the Jimmy Carter administration. And it was reminding me very much during the Trump years. That reminded me very much of the Carter years. Now there's actually 3 people in my lifetime who became president who at least paid lip service and actually did things to try to bring about peace. One of them was Donald Trump, whether you like it or not. Jimmy Carter even said so, that he was probably eligible for the Nobel Peace Prize because of his work in the Koreas. Now, you don't like Jimmy Carter, you can go, well, fuck that guy. But I think Jimmy Carter is one of our better presidents, even though he was not given a chance to be a very good president. With all the scandals going on, and a lot of people in his administration weren't necessarily good for the job, and so he maybe picked some bad people. I think he has the best heart of anybody who's ever been president in my lifetime. The other guy, you might recall a guy named John F. Kennedy, who tried to make peace and actually was taken out by somebody. Now, we don't know who. Even 50, 60 years later, we don't know who. There's no consensus on who. There's an official line, but again, find 3 people that agree on the line, and that's going to be very hard. Was it one guy alone? Some people will say yes. Some people will say it was him plus another guy in the bushes, and some people will say it was a mafia, and some people will say it was the Cubans, and some people, will even blame Vice President Johnson, Vice President at the time, Lyndon Johnson. But what happened? Here's the thing. What happened after Kennedy was shot? Johnson escalated the war in Vietnam that Kennedy did not want to escalate. Coincidence? I don't know. We'll never know. I don't think we'll ever know. Sorry about the squeaky chair. I know. It makes horrible noises. I will have to get some WD-40 or something. But anyway, that's one headline. And it's actually from the more of the right wing, which is interesting because, well, I can see it if they're doing this in a biased way. The reason that they would point out Elizabeth Warren doing this is because she's taking Trump's side. And they tend to take Trump's side on this paper. But if I went and I looked at some other website, I imagine I would find anti-Elizabeth Warren comments and commentary sections, opinion pages, and things like that about how she's betraying the left by sticking up for Trump. Because that's the way these things work. The left-leaning, I don't want to say left really, but I'll say liberal. Liberal-leaning newspapers and websites will find a reason to frame a story a certain way, and the right-wing or conservative-leaning newspapers, magazines, and websites will find a way to frame a story, the same story, in completely the opposite way. And that's why nobody trusts the news, and that's why when Donald Trump said the news is fake, well, we've known that for years. It's staged, and anybody that has 2 major newspapers in town, like I used to in Chicago, we had the Chicago Times and the Chicago Sun, and I think they merged or something. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't care. That's fine. But there were 2. There was one that was sort of basically a liberal-leaning paper, and then there was another one that was sort of a conservative-leaning paper. And I would always read both. I'd read both. And that's when people read newspapers. But so I do that now with websites in the same way. I look for all kinds of opinions. But I have noticed that it's sort of easy to predict these days who's going to say what about what. Should it be that easy? I don't think so. I think it should be a little bit more like, hey, let's present both sides in this our own publication, instead of our own publication just going after the dirt on somebody and the other publication just going on to showing how that same person is an angel. You know, that that seems to happen a lot. But presenting all sides of a story in one newspaper article or website article, that seems to be a lost art. What do you think? You can let me know in the comments. I'm going to get out of here for now because I look at YouTube and I'm like, that I would like to see, but it's 100 minutes long. I would like to watch it if it was 9 minutes long, but I don't want to watch something that's longer than the Avengers. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to just keep these short and on one topic at a time. I'm not doing any deep dives because you know, I'm just too lazy. I'm just too lazy to do deep dives. I just want to point out obvious things, and this is the obvious thing right now. Just right there. Look at that Elizabeth Warren story. The obvious thing is this conservative-leaning website is publishing a very nice picture of Elizabeth Warren, where sometimes they would publish my space is what? Yeah, of course. They would publish a not so nice picture of Elizabeth Warren when they want to condemn her, but when she says something that they agree with, hey, this is cool, let's put a nice picture of her. And they did. Weird. Weird. It's one thing I really hate about today's journalism is that when they want to paint somebody in a bad light, they will actually, literally, put up the worst picture they can find of somebody and run a story by it. Or if they want to paint them in a good light, they'll find the best picture possible. Again, that's it for me. This is saying that my disc is almost full. So I don't know what to do about that right now. But I'm going to stop this thing and just invite you to subscribe if you'd like to subscribe to somebody who is not so conservative leaning and not so liberal leaning that he can't hear the other side without vomiting or frothing at the mouth in anger. I know frothing at the mouth sells, but we've got to get out of that trap. It's just too poisonous to society for everybody to be walking around frothing at the mouth because they read or heard something that they didn't agree with. Try to find the common ground. The truth is usually somewhere in the middle. And I'm not advocating centrism. I'm not a fan of centrism, but I am more of a person that wants to hear the other side as much as my own side. Like, subscribe, pass it around, do what you do. I don't know how these things work. I don't know if I'll ever be monetized. I don't really care. I just get on here and vent once in a while, and I hope I will do it more often. And you'll have to forgive my shitty teeth right now. Like I said, I just lost a tooth. Did I say this in this video? Or did that get edited out already? I just lost a tooth over the weekend, so I look like shit right now. Hopefully we can get that taken care of in sometime. That's never going to be a part of Medicare for All, even if we get Medicare for All, apparently. Dentists have their own thing going, and it's a good scam. But again, like, subscribe, tell your friends, shop us around if you want to. If you, hey, this guy's cool. I don't know. Peace now, peace forever. Bye for now.